Hello everyone, it's me Movie, and welcome back to my Warhammer 40k video. And today let's talk about the Carnifex. Now Carnifex, it's a unit that a lot of people has been asking around, like what's the best way to set up Carnifex, what's the best way to build your Carnifex, and people talk about magnetizing, switching the wargear option all the time. But I figured out that, since every time I stumble upon people asking what's the best setup for Carnifex, I have to end up typing like a whole essay worth of a paragraph just to explain why a certain setup of Carnifex is better and why other setup of Carnifex is inferior. It just takes too much of my time, and I figured that I might as well just make a video, and then in the future, future reference, if you're getting this video through a link because I reply it to you in the comment, that's because I'm tired of like typing the whole thing up. So I just made it in video format. It's much easier for me to explain why certain Carnifex setup doesn't work and why certain Carnifex setup does work. So let's talk about the most common, well, I don't want to say mistake because I feel like punishing people for being creative is just not something I would like to do. But telling people some builds are inefficient is, I think, it's the better thing to do. It's actually a nicer thing because people don't spend their money to build their model and then realize the setup sucks and they just waste a bunch of money on modeling. So I don't want that to happen. So let's talk about some of the, I should say, inferior setups, right? I'm just gonna call it that. So I'm sorry. So let's talk about the first one that's really common, which is the heavy venom cannon with Death Spitter in Kronos detachment. Now this type of Carnifex is so wasteful. It is so wasteful for Carnifex as a unit. Now Carnifex, as you know it's a unit that is capable of dealing massive amount of heavy, high strength damage with their crushing claw, and by giving them a heavy venom cannon and Death Spitter and enhanced sense, which up their ballistic skill from a 4+ to a 3+, and then put them in Kronos battalion so they can reroll hit rolls of a 1 when they sit still, even though their range weapons are all assault type, it's just a crime. Like doing so, it's simply a crime. Now, and it's also because like there is so many other options for you to choose from. You can take Tyranid, which prefer to sit still and shoot anyway. Same thing works with the Exocrane, which has +1 to their ballistic skill if they stand still, and they shoot twice if they stand still. And yeah, so you have those options to choose from when you want to use anti-tank range weapon from the Tyranid Codex. So why take Carnifex and do the same thing when their weapon is assault? Their weapons are assault. You're supposed to be mobile with the Carnifex, not sit still with them. You don't want to limit yourself by sitting still. You want to actually move around and get some shot off, which I will talk about later. So that's why the first setup, the so-called Carnifex, right? There's like two types of Carnifex. The first one is the one I'm talking about right now, which is a heavy venom cannon with Death Spitter, and the other one is the Quad Devourer or the Quad Death Spitter. All right. So the first one is just really bad. It's just, you don't want to limit yourself into sit still with Carnifex. There's other better unit to choose from that does exact same thing, that does the job better. Better weapon, better ballistic skill, whatever. Right? They can benefit from the Kronos ability better than Carnifex. So heavy venom cannon with Death Spitter is just really bad. And also because like, what's the whole point of having Death Spitter? It's like, if you're gonna shoot with heavy venom cannon, which is like 36 inches, right? And since you are sort of locked to a place, you can't exactly move, because if you move, then you lose the reroll hit rolls of 1 from Kronos, which defeat the purpose of putting them in the first place. So you kind of like force yourself to like sit in one place, which you can't move. But if you cannot move, then there is no way that you're going to be able to hit anything with your Death Spitter. Your Death Spitter is basically wasted. You might as well take a Crushing Claw, because Crushing Claw is only 12 point a pair. It's only 12 point a pair. It's the cheapest weapon option available to Carnifex. Why not take that? Taking Crushing Claw is actually cheaper that way, because your Death Spitter won't hit anything, just like your Crushing Claw. Whereas your Crushing Claw is not only cheaper, and they can also serve as like a last pinch attack for if something that's invading your base, then you have at least something to fight against it with your crushing claw. You know, that setup is better than having like Death Spitter and force them to sit still. But that being said, I think like Kronos with Carnifex simply just doesn't work. It's wasting so much potential. All right, so that's the first setup. A second setup is the one I just said, is the Quad Devourer with the Quad Death Spitter. Now, the reason why Quad Death Spitter or the Quad Devourer works on Flying Hive Tyrant but doesn't work on Carnifex is for the following reason. All right. Every time when I tell people that the Quad Devourer and the Quad Death Spitter setup does not work on Carnifex, people always say, well, then why would you recommend to use it on Flyrunes? Why people always recommend take Quad Devourer on Flyrunes, and why does it not work on Carnifex? I mean, they both hit on 3+, and they have the exact same strength and AP and everything, and it has the same value, so what's the difference? The first thing is range, alright? For Flying Hive Tyrant, since it has a movement speed of 16 inches, it can move around across the board anywhere it wants, and the range 18 Devourer and the range 24 Death Spitter is not an issue. They can hit almost anything they want because they have a movement speed of 16 inches. Whereas Carnifex only has a movement speed of 7 inches, right? It can only move 7 inches, and so the effective range of their shooting weapon is greatly reduced because of their movement speed. So taking Devourer and Death Spitter is just, you'll probably take like a turn before you can actually hit anything, because you have to travel to a place, then you can start shooting your weapons, so you basically waste a turn of not being able to do anything, alright? And also because taking quad weapon is really bad, because you have like absolutely no way to defend yourself. You can't, if I charge you with a Rhino, if I charge you with like a Razorback, right, what are you gonna hit me with? You can't hit me with anything. You have like you have like quad range weapon. Yeah, sure, you can still hit me with your melee profile, which is strength 6 AP nothing for attacks. That's cool and all, but you won't be able to do as significant damage as Crushing Claw. Crushing Claw is a deterrent against enemy trying to tar pit you. If I'm trying to tar pit your Carnifex, and then you're basically screwed, because whereas in this actually move on to my second point, where Flyrun has fly, you know, it cannot be targeted. I can charge a Flyrun and attempt to shut down its shooting, but it just won't work because it can just fly away and still shoot the turn it falls back. Whereas in Carnifex cases, if you fall back with all your weapon, you can't shoot that turn. You can't shoot at all. So that's why the full range weapon setup on Carnifex is bad. You will get targeted. The range on your movement speed does not grant you the ability to have the wider range of the foe to shoot at. That's why the quad setup is usually inferior, even though it's famous for some reason. I mean, it used to be really good in previous edition, but not in 8th edition, where fallback and shooting is a privilege for unit with certain special ability or have fly keyword, right? But Carnifex can't do that. It does not have fly keyword, so there's that. So that's the first two setup that's really bad. Let's move on to the third one. The third one I see very often is the so-called the double scything talon Carnifex, and this is really bad, and this applies to Screamer Killer as well, because Screamer Killer is also the Carnifex variation that has like quad. Well, I'm sorry, excuse me. Screamer Killer is the Carnifex variation that has a double set of scything talon, and this is bad because double scything talon is the weapon profile is to aim against marine equivalent, which is usually set as in MEQ. Now, if you're using a weapon that's good versus such unit and versus MEQ, you have to consider one of the following things. Okay, as Tyranids, we have wide range of unit to choose from that can dedicate themselves to kill MEQ. Gene Stealers with their Rending Claw, Flyrun with their Monstrous Rending Claw, Brewlord with their Monstrous Rending Claw, Exocrane with its Bioplasmic Cannon, Hive Guard with its Hive Impaler Cannon, and so on. There's like I already list like 5 different stuff that can kill a marine equivalent, which they are very effective as well. Actually, they're very effective to kill the marines. So you don't need Carnifex to dedicate itself to that role, because the role can be fit by so many different stuff I just mentioned. There's no point to have like one extra unit to do the same thing that everyone does anyway. And also because Carnifex, it's a monstrous creature, all right, per the FAQ rule. Well, this is not FAQ, it's kind of like a general rule that a monstrous creature or vehicle, if you're not infantry, you cannot climb to the 2nd floor unless you have some rule that specifies you can do so, or unless you have the fly keyword, which both Carnifex lack. It does not have any special rule that allows to climb on the 2nd floor. Neither does it have the fly keyword. So if you're trying to kill MEQ, like let's say you're trying to kill the Hellblasters or the Intercessors or a Devastator squad, all your opponent has to do is to deploy them on the 2nd floor of the room, and they are free from your Carnifex attack. Like, you can't even attack them. You can't even attack them at all, because you cannot climb to the 2nd floor and go base contact with them. That's the problem. You know, that one simple trick can already avoid your attack. So what's the point of taking double scything talon and attempt to kill the MEQ, where you have so many other swords to do so? So that's the 3rd setup I think is inferior. And then lastly, the last setup is the one that I personally use to promote, and it just simply does not work anymore. It's the setup. It's the heavy venom cannon with crushing claw. Now I know this is a bit controversial, because like there has been a tournament where people run this exact setup and get like a very good result. I think it was called like the Poor Man's List, or like I'm not quite sure what it was, but it was a while ago. The list is obviously invalid because like the meta is completely different now. I think it's from like a year ago. Like back then, meta was so different that the list actually sort of worked, right? But here's the thing: it used to work because the meta was different, but now it doesn't work anymore. It's because of this, okay? This is why you shouldn't take heavy venom cannon on Carnifex at all. You shouldn't, like, at all. This is why. It's because if you're taking Carnifex, you're most likely going to put it in the Kraken detachment, right? Because like, why wouldn't you do that? Because if you put it in Kraken detachment, you get to fall back and charge on the same turn, which will trigger your battering ram ability, which +1 to your hit roll, and it also triggers the mortal wounds on the 4+, the turn you charge, right? So it's really good. Like, of course you want to take Kraken, and also Kraken allows Carnifex to advance 3d6 and pick the highest result, which makes them allows them to reach their enemy faster. So naturally Kraken is the choice here. So now if you're gonna take Kraken, then what is the point of taking heavy venom cannon? Because if you take heavy venom cannon, right, then you kind of have to walk and shoot, because if you advance and shoot with your heavy venom cannon, you will hit on the 4+, and that's after considering that you're giving the Carnifex enhanced sense. If you give Carnifex enhanced sense and if you stand and shoot, then you will hit on 3+, or if you move and shoot, you'll hit on 3+. But if you advance and shoot, because you should advance because you are in Kraken, you can advance 3d6, you can get to the enemy faster, then the hit becomes a 4+, which it's okay on Death Spitter and Devourer because they have much higher volume of shots. But on the low volume shot like heavy venom cannon, it only has it's assault D3. On average, you will only have 2 shots per turn. Having 2 shots per turn, and on the ballistic skill of a 4, because after advancing, you will have a ballistic skill of a 4 after calculating everything. It's just not that great. Here's why. Here's another example to prove this. Last Cannon is available to both Space Marine and Imperial Guard, but you rarely see Imperial Guard take Last Cannon. Well, I mean, not as often as you see Space Marine take it. If you see a squad of Devastators, chances are they're going to have at least 3 Last Cannon, or at least 2 Last Cannon in their Devastator squad. But if you take Imperial Guard heavy weapon squad, you'll probably see more stuff like mortars, or even autocannons, and like maybe even missile launcher, but like you rarely see Last Cannon, and this is because like ballistic skill is different. Hitting on 3s and hitting on 4s has a very large impact on what you can do with the weapon. The higher your ballistic skill, the better it is to wield a weapon with low volume of shots, which is in this case like heavy venom cannon. But if you have large volume of shot, then having bad ballistic skill doesn't really matter, because the averageness of the dice will average the shot out, and you will probably hit the average much easier. If you have lower volume of dice, and then you have a very mediocre chance of hitting, you will run into bad luck more often than high volume shot weapons, and it will be more in fact impactful. Obviously, this can work both ways. Like you can get absolutely lucky, and then you will always hit on like a 4+ regardless, and then you might be on the lucky end of this, and that's why it makes you want one of the promoter of having him, of telling people to say, oh, take heavy venom cannon on Carnifex because it works for me, and that only works for you because you got to the lucky part of the probability, whereas the unlucky part of the people are going to feel terrible because the luck is not on their side, and that 50-50 feeling is just really random, and I don't like that at all. And also because having higher volume of shot will neutralize the chance of getting a bad luck. So that's why heavy venom cannon doesn't work on Carnifex, because you always want to advance, and if you advance, then your 3+ ballistic skill becomes a 4+, and that will directly affect the low volume shot of heavy venom cannon, and so on. So that's why I say heavy venom cannon does not work on Carnifex. So like I said, I think I said before in my previous video, the best setup for Carnifex right now in the current meta is Enhanced Sense, Sporcist, Crushing Claw, and Devour, Twin Devour, or Twin Death Spitter, depends. I will personally prefer Twin Devour, but Twin Death Spitter works just as well. And then as for the tail weapon, just keep it clean. Unless you have 2 points, you really don't know where to spend, then maybe give it a bone mace, but that's pretty much it. Like, just keep it clean like that. And also, oh yeah, of course, obviously, how can I forget? Give it Adrenal Gland. Like, Adrenal Gland is absolutely mandatory, because if you're gonna take it in Kraken, you're constantly advancing. Having spent that 5 extra points, to get the 1 extra inch on advancing and charging, it's absolutely vital. So there is that. That's the best way to build Carnifex. What's your way to build Carnifex? Please let me know. Even though in my in this entirety of the video, I basically just said like the most popular ways building Carnifex are, well, not most popular, but like the most common ways to build Carnifex wrong is, you know, that's kind of my idea. But you know, like, if anyone can prove me wrong otherwise, you know, I'm all ears. I'm always looking for the better ways to play this game. So if anyone can, well, should I say, argue against me, then, you know, I'm all ears. I'd like to hear what's your opinion on this, and then let's talk. Let's open this forum and talk about Carnifex, everything, right? So that's pretty much it for the video of this week, and I'll see you guys later. Goodbye.